Hello! So after the trials and tribulations of Vietnam, it's finally time to talk about one of my favorite stops on this backpacking trip, the Philippines. So it's no secret that I didn't really enjoy Vietnam. Overall, I found the locals to be quite rude and disrespectful towards me, and I was a bit underwhelmed by the stuff I saw there. But lucky me, the Philippines was the polar opposite. The Filipino leg of this trip started with me and Kati flying into Cebu with the intention of going to Moalboal. It's a little beach town known for its snorkeling where you can see sardines and whale sharks. Moalboal was quite nice, even though I spent most of my time recovering from my lingering food poisoning that I caught in Vietnam. So aside from dying slowly out in bed, I didn't do much there. However, I did muster up the energy to go to a beautiful beach called the White Beach to do some light reading over there and to watch a beautiful sunset. But after Moalboal, we boarded a bus back to Cebu to catch a flight to Boracay. Boracay was pretty hyped up to me. I heard so many good things about it, and everybody who went there told me they loved it. It's basically the Monaco of the Philippines. It's where all the posh Filipinos and rich foreigners go sit their ass in a resort and relax for a bit. And that's pretty much what I did there, except that instead of sitting my butt in a nice resort, I sat my ass in a pretty nice hostel instead. Boracay, it's a lovely little island with beautiful beaches, even though they're a bit overcrowded at times. The little boats that line the beaches did add a nice touch to the landscape. However, I felt like the place wasn't the most adapted for backpackers, and you could feel that it was more aimed towards wealthier tourists. All of the restaurants were pretty expensive for Southeast Asian standards, and the island itself wasn't super social. It's more for people who are just vacationing there or on honeymoon rather than people that are backpacking through Asia. With that being said, I did meet some cool people in Boracay. I met an inspiring and aspiring photographer from Germany with whom I had a lot of conversations about the business of being a photographer and videographer, which was very interesting. It was also a good place to take a break from the adventurous backpacking and settle down to chill for a couple of days. The sunsets were amazing and the beaches were absolutely breathtaking, and I was pretty happy because I managed to get some pretty good shots there. After Boracay, and due to an impending tropical depression, we decided to head west to avoid the storm, so we banked on El Nido. However, leaving Boracay proved to be a bit of a hassle. Our flight directly to El Nido was cancelled due to some bad weather, so we had to stay an extra night next to Boracay in some shitty hotel. When we finally flew, we didn't fly directly to El Nido, we flew to Puerto Princesa instead. Another night in some shitty hotel, and then a 6-hour van ride later, we were finally in El Nido. El Nido was absolutely beautiful, and our hostel was incredibly fun. We stayed at a place that had free rum and coke every night from 7 until 11, so as you can imagine, it was a pretty festive hostel. Anyways, we started our trip to El Nido with a nice boat tour where we met a lot of people. We did a lot of snorkeling and just chilled in the water most of the day. But I'll admit that at some point, I kinda got burned out by everything. Let me explain what I mean by that. Yeah, the Philippines are absolutely beautiful, and it was one of my favorite countries to visit, but the beaches here aren't very different from the ones in Thailand, for example. Same for the boat tour. It was nice, but it's not noticeably different from the ones I already did before. I also think that I felt like this because at that point, I had already seen quite a fair chunk of Southeast Asia, so the wow factor of discovering a new place or a new environment kind of wore off by then. So I don't want to say I didn't like it anymore. If anything, I guess I was just feeling a bit ungrateful. But anyways, El Nido was also the place where I met a lot of cool people like Eve and Sam from the Netherlands, Khalid and Yanis from France, and it's also the place where I parted ways with Kati. She had to leave a bit earlier to go to Indonesia, which meant I'd have to spend my last couple of days in the Philippines alone. And I was really sad about that, you know? We spent 10 weeks traveling together, sharing every single one of these stories I've been telling you about together. She's made the bad times feel like not so bad times, and the good times even better. We formed a terrific duo together, so thank you, Kati, for making the better half of this trip unforgettable. Being alone meant that I also had to be a bit more social than I usually was. So after El Nido, I left with Khalid to go to another place in Palawan called Port Barton. I unfortunately didn't film a lot in Port Barton. I just preferred leaving my camera back at the hostel and living the moment a bit more. Especially being alone and having to be a bit more social, I couldn't be mega autistic and spend my days looking behind my camera. I also found myself to be a bit burnt out again, from creating content. It's not that I didn't enjoy it anymore, it's just I wasn't as inspired as I used to be. Like I said earlier, the landscape started to feel a bit repetitive for me, but the same also went for the pigs I was shooting. I got bored of shooting silhouettes into sunsets or some boats on the horizon, so that took a back seat for a while. So overall, Port Barton was very nice. It's a super small beach town kind of in the middle of nowhere, but it's cool because since everything is so small, everybody bumps into each other all the time, and everybody goes out to the same spots every evening. On the way to Port Barton, I met another French dude called Mika. Mika, Khalid and I rented kayaks one day and paddled to all the different beaches around here, which was exhausting to say the least, but very enjoyable. There's nothing like watching nightfall from a kayak in the middle of a little bay in Palawan. Finally, to close off the trip in the Philippines, I spent the day in Manila. I didn't have high expectations, and I certainly wasn't impressed. But I wasn't really there to visit anyways. I was waiting to catch my flight to go to Bali. So I bought some new shoes, went for a run, and then it was time to fuck off from the Philippines. But overall, the Philippines were amazing. Filipinos and Filipinos are absolutely lovely people. They were by far the most welcoming people in Southeast Asia. They were also by far the most fun and easygoing nationality I met. Also, their English is nothing short of amazing, which makes traveling around the Philippines a breeze. I also found Palawan to be incredibly beautiful and incredibly backpacker friendly. It's really not difficult to have fun there if you're traveling alone. Everything is easygoing and easily accessible. The bars were incredibly fun and the restaurants were quite good as well. And once again, the people I met there were incredibly nice. But anyway, that pretty much wraps up the Filipino part of this trip. Now it's off to Bali for 2 weeks before heading off to Japan. Until then, take care. Say bye-bye.